What if the very instinct that kept your ancestors alive is the exact reason you will never build wealth? Not laziness, not lack of opportunity, not even the economy. The mechanism silently dismantling your financial future was installed in your mind long before you earned your first dollar. And every financial decision you make, every purchase, every hesitation to invest, every moment you choose safety over growth, is being quietly controlled by it. I know what you're thinking. You work hard. You try to save. You tell yourself that one day, when you earn a little more, when conditions are a little better, when life feels a little safer, then you'll start building real wealth. But here's the brutal truth. That feeling of not enough, that constant low hum of financial anxiety, is not a signal that you need more money. It is the trap itself. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Marcus, 34 years old, marketing analyst, makes decent money, not spectacular, but solid. He has a 401k he contributes to because HR told him to. He has a savings account that he empties every time an emergency appears, and emergencies always appear. He reads articles about investing. He watches videos about passive income. He knows intellectually that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And yet, at the end of every month, Marcus feels exactly the same as he did at the beginning, like there isn't enough, like he's one bad week away from financial collapse. Like wealth is something that happens to other people. Marcus is not unusual. Marcus is the majority. And the reason Marcus is stuck has nothing to do with his salary, his discipline, or his intelligence. It has everything to do with the oldest operating system ever installed in the human brain. Psychologists Sendil Mulainathan and Eldar Shafir spent years studying what scarcity does to the human mind. Their research, which became the book Scarcity, revealed something so unsettling that it should be taught in every economics class in the world. When people feel they don't have enough, whether money, time, or food, their mental bandwidth collapses. The cognitive space available for long-term planning, for strategic thinking, for resisting impulses, shrinks dramatically. Scarcity doesn't just make you poor, it makes you think poor. It rewires your brain to obsess over the immediate and ignore the future. Every dollar feels like the last dollar. Every risk feels fatal. Every investment feels like loss. And here's where it gets sinister. This effect doesn't require you to actually be poor. It only requires you to feel like you might be. Warren Buffett once said that the most important investment you can make is in yourself. But what he never said, what the financial world almost never talks about, is that you cannot make that investment when your mind is consumed by survival. You cannot think like an investor when your nervous system is running a scarcity loop. You cannot play a long-term game when your brain has decided, below the level of consciousness, that there may be no long-term to play for. This is what I call the scarcity trap. It's not about your income. It's not about your circumstances. It is a cognitive and emotional prison built from outdated psychological programming, and it is the single most powerful force keeping ordinary people away from wealth. Here is how it works. The human brain evolved under conditions of genuine resource scarcity. For hundreds of thousands of years, food was uncertain, safety was not guaranteed, and the future was a concept that mattered far less than surviving the next winter. The brain adapted. It became exquisitely sensitive to shortage. It became wired to hoard, to avoid risk, to discount the future in favor of the present, what behavioral economists call present bias. It learned that loss was twice as painful as gain was pleasurable, what Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky named loss aversion in their foundational work on prospect theory. These were rational adaptations for a world of genuine scarcity. The tragedy is that you are running prehistoric software in a modern financial environment. The same instincts that once saved your ancestors are now costing you your financial future. Think about the last time you had a real opportunity to invest. Maybe it was putting extra money into an index fund, or saying yes to a business idea, or simply deciding not to touch your emergency fund. For 3 months, what stopped you? Was it actual poverty, or was it a feeling, a tightening in your chest, a whisper that said, "What if I need this later? What if something goes wrong? What if I lose it all?" That whisper is not wisdom. That whisper is the scarcity trap speaking. Charlie Munger, the legendary partner of Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway, built much of his investment philosophy around understanding human psychological biases. He called the collection of these cognitive errors the psychology of human misjudgment. What Munger understood with terrifying clarity was that the biggest enemies of wealth are not external, not the market, not luck, not timing. They are internal, and loss aversion is near the top of that list. Research shows that losses are psychologically felt at roughly twice the intensity of equivalent gains. This means that the pain of losing $100 feels approximately as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $200. In financial terms, this creates a catastrophic asymmetry. You will systematically avoid opportunities with high expected value because the emotional cost of potential loss outweighs the rational case for potential gain. This is not irrational stupidity. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that it was designed for a world that no longer exists. Now let's go deeper, because the scarcity trap does not operate alone. It has allies, psychological mechanisms that reinforce it, amplify it, and make it nearly invisible to the person it is controlling. The first ally is mental accounting. Richard Thaler, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017, discovered that people do not treat money as fungible, interchangeable. Instead, the brain creates mental buckets for money. This month's salary feels different from a tax refund. A windfall feels different from earned income. And critically, money earmarked for the future is almost always valued less than money available now. The scarcity-trapped mind will spend the windfall before the weekend ends because on some deep psychological level, saving feels like surrendering something real in exchange for something abstract. The second ally is status quo bias. People overwhelmingly prefer the familiar over the unknown, even when the unknown offers significantly better outcomes. This is why most people leave money in low-yield savings accounts for years, despite knowing about better alternatives. The brain, operating under scarcity logic, interprets change as risk and risk as threat. Staying still feels safe. Staying still keeps you poor. The third ally is present bias, the tendency to value immediate rewards dramatically more than future ones. Naval Ravikant, the entrepreneur and investor, said it directly. The most important decision you'll ever make is the decision to become the kind of person who delays gratification. What he was describing is the core behavioral antidote to present bias. But it is nearly impossible to apply when your brain is running a scarcity loop. The scarcity-trapped mind cannot delay gratification, not because of moral weakness, but because the psychological cost of delay feels, neurologically, like a real loss. This is the architecture of the trap, and now you are going to want to push back. You are going to say, "I know all of this. I've heard about loss aversion. I understand compound interest." The problem is real life. Bills, rent, childcare, emergencies. You don't know my situation. I hear you, and I respect you too much to dismiss that. Real financial pressure is real. Resource stress is real. But I want you to sit with something uncomfortable for a moment. What if your financial situation is not just a cause of the scarcity mindset, but partly a result of it? Because here is what the research consistently shows. Two people with identical incomes, identical expenses, identical circumstances can have radically different financial trajectories based entirely on the mental models they bring to their money. One person sees their paycheck as a resource to manage, to allocate, to deploy strategically. The other sees it as water cupped in their hands, always about to spill. One person makes financial decisions from a position of clarity and intention. The other makes financial decisions from a state of low-grade panic. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is not character. The difference is the operating system. Robert Kiyosaki wrote in Rich Dad, Poor Dad that the primary difference between the wealthy and everyone else is not income. It is financial literacy combined with financial identity. The wealthy think like owners, the non-wealthy think like workers. But what Kiyosaki didn't say explicitly, what this channel is here to say, is that the deepest barrier to thinking like an owner is the scarcity architecture hardwired into your psychology. You cannot think like a wealth builder while running a survival program. And this is where the real transformation happens, not in a spreadsheet, not in an investment portfolio, not in a salary negotiation. It happens in the mind. It happens in the moment you recognize the scarcity voice for what it is, an evolutionary relic, not a financial advisor. It happens when you begin to treat your financial decisions as strategic choices made from abundance rather than desperate moves made from fear. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about manifesting wealth. This is about understanding the game at the level of psychology, not just mathematics, and choosing to play differently. Here is how that looks in practice. First, recognize the scarcity signal. When you feel that tightening around a financial decision, that impulse to protect, to hold back, to avoid, stop. Label it. This is my loss aversion speaking. That single act of labeling creates cognitive distance. It moves the decision from System 1, automatic, emotional, fear-driven, to System 2, deliberate, rational, strategic. Second, automate wealth decisions. Because willpower depletes, because self-control is a finite resource that gets exhausted by the exact kind of financial stress the scarcity trap creates. Behavioral economists call this choice architecture, designing your environment so that the right decision is the default. Automate your investment contributions. Make generosity the path of least resistance. Remove the friction from wealth-building behaviors so that your scarcity instincts never get the chance to intervene. Third, reframe risk as information. The scarcity-trapped mind sees every risk as a potential loss. The wealth-building mind sees risk as data, a signal about where opportunity lives, about the gap between price and value, about what others are avoiding out of fear that might represent your next strategic advantage. Warren Buffett built his empire on this single reframe. When others are fearful, be greedy. This is not recklessness. It is the disciplined application of a mind that has escaped the scarcity trap. Fourth, build a margin of safety and protect it ferociously. Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing and Buffett's mentor, made margin of safety the cornerstone of his entire philosophy, not because he was scared of loss, but because having a financial buffer changes the operating mode of your brain. When you have a runway, even a modest one, the scarcity signals quiet. And down, the mental bandwidth opens up. You begin to make financial decisions from clarity rather than desperation. The margin of safety is not just a financial strategy, it is a psychological intervention. Fifth, change your financial identity before you change your financial behavior. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that identity-based motivation is more powerful and durable than incentive-based motivation. People who describe themselves as investors, as wealth builders, as financially strategic, make different decisions almost automatically than people who see themselves as someone who is bad with money, someone who doesn't earn enough, someone who is just trying to get by. The identity precedes the behavior. The story you tell yourself about who you are financially will determine the financial life you build. Now I want to ask you something, not rhetorically, genuinely. How much of your financial life has been run by the scarcity trap without you knowing it? How many times have you let fear masquerade as prudence? How many opportunities have you declined, not because the math was wrong, but because the feeling was uncomfortable? How much wealth, not just money, but freedom, choice, the ability to say no to things that diminish you and yes to things that don't, has the scarcity trap cost you? This is not about blame. You did not install this software. Evolution did. Society did. A school system that teaches you algebra but not loss aversion did. But you are an adult now, and the software can be rewritten. Marcus, our marketing analyst from the beginning, eventually hit a point where he stopped reading about investing and started studying his own mind. He started noticing the scarcity loop. He labeled his fear responses. He automated a small investment contribution, modest but real. He built an emergency fund that he committed to not touching unless blood was involved. And slowly, something shifted, not just in his bank account, in his nervous system. In the way he walked into a financial decision. The scarcity voice didn't disappear, but it stopped running the show. That is the transformation available to you, not overnight, not through one video, but through the relentless, disciplined decision to understand the psychological game underneath the financial game, and to play it with full awareness. You are not broke because you lack intelligence. You are not stuck because the world is unfair, though it often is. You are not financially trapped because of your past. You are financially trapped because you are running ancient software in a modern world, and no one ever sat you down and explained the code. Now you understand the code. The question is, what will you do with it? Write in the comments right now. I am not my scarcity. Just those 4 words, not for the algorithm, not for likes, but as a declaration, the first line of your new financial identity, a small act of reprogramming, a signal to yourself that you have seen the trap, you have named it, and you are choosing to step out of it. If this conversation changed something in how you think about money, not just what you do with it, but who you are in relation to it, subscribe. That is what this channel exists to do, not to sell you financial products, not to give you stock tips, but to dismantle the psychological architecture that keeps intelligent, capable, hard-working people financially stuck for decades, and to rebuild something better in its place. The scarcity trap kept your ancestors alive. Let it go. You were built for more than survival.